So I tested an AutoFlex shaft versus the Ultralight Grand Bassara shaft, and the results astounded me. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. I'm holding two super premium golf shafts in my hand, and I want to compare them because I actually watched a video with a gentleman who's been doing golf a lot longer than me and is a lot smarter than me, but he surmises, and I will say, not having tested the AutoFlex shaft, that the AutoFlex shaft is bunk and that you can duplicate it with something like this. So he makes two contentions. One, that, as you know, the AutoFlex shaft is quite light, and so this is the SF405. I use this in my driver. I've been using it since last fall, and I really love it, but I thought he made some compelling arguments. His first argument is that, first of all, the AutoFlex shafts are really light. In fact, most of them advertise to be about 46 grams, so they're quite a bit lighter than most standard golf shafts. In fact, a lot of shafts are 50, 60, 70 grams. Now, I didn't really buy that argument because I was using an Aldila NVS 45, so that shaft advertises itself at about 46 grams, and the AutoFlex shaft advertises itself at 46 grams. But he says if you go to a lighter shaft, it's going to be less swing weight, you're going to swing it faster. So that's one thing that he says that's going to happen. Secondly, he says that the kick that you get with the AutoFlex shaft, because it's really whippy, is going to negate itself because the tip may whip forward, but what that does is it pushes the end, this midpoint of the shaft, in. So what you don't get is you don't get a full 5 mile per hour effect. If you get 5 miles an hour here at the tip, it's offset by 3 or 4 miles here. So maybe a flexible shaft will give you a mile or two, but it won't give you the full flick effect. So he's saying that the flexibility of the shaft is kind of irrelevant too. And he says that you can duplicate this by getting a light shaft that has a lot of flex, and it should do just about the same thing. So what I did was something stupid, and I burned a bunch of money because I thought, man, it's a great theory, and to be honest, if it works, then you could probably save yourself a ton of money. Now, there are some light shafts out there, but I went whole hog. So like I said, I was using the Aldila NVS 45, which is a 45 gram shaft. I actually found the Graphite Pro Launch Blue 45, which is also like a 45 gram shaft, but I also found this. This is actually by Mitsubishi Chemical, and this is their Grand Bassara golf shaft. This is the lightest golf shaft that I have ever found, and this is the lightest version of it. So they actually make a 39 and a 29. So this is a Grand Bassara 29, which means it's 29 grams. It's really not 29 grams. For whatever reason, they actually put in the specs that it's 32 grams. So 46 grams versus 32 grams, which means this is 14 grams difference. I will tell you what, I've got the grip on here and everything, and this shaft feels really light. It feels like air. Man, it is so light. I am pretty shocked. So we've got a really light shaft. On top of that, I have the Flex Light. So it comes in a regular and a light flex. So this is more of like the senior flex. So this should be the whippiest one. You can see I can give it a little flex right there. Super light, super whippy. I went ahead and I built the Grand Bassara to replace my PXG shaft right here. And as you can see, they are exactly the same lengths and exactly the same ultralight grip. So these are both the Win Dry Tack lights oversized. So they're only a 33 gram grip, so they're very light. Now this is my PXG Gen 4 0811X head, and as you can see, both PXG adapters here, because my test is going to be just to move the head. I didn't want the grips to be different. I didn't want the head to be different. I didn't change the weights. Basically, the only thing I'm really going to test is swing speed and ball speed, because if the Grand Bassara produces the same results that the AutoFlex produces, it's doing it at about half the price point. Now, granted, the AutoFlex is an $800 shaft, the Grand Bassara is a $400 shaft, so it's not an inexpensive shaft, but you could save yourself $400 if this performs just like the AutoFlex. So ultimately, all I want to do is check the club head speed and the ball speed, because if the Grand Bassara is a better shaft at a lower price point, then I will just switch my heads over and then tune it and fine tune it for this particular shaft, right? But if it's not better, then I'm not going to bother doing that. So I went ahead and went to the PGA Tour Superstore, where they have a GC quad that is available for testing in their simulator, and I went ahead and I hit a bunch of balls just swapping these shafts back and forth, and the results astounded me. Right, so let's start with the Grand Bassara shaft here. My club head speed with the Grand Bassara shaft here averaged 73.9 miles an hour. That's actually not bad. It's about what I was recording last year with my Aldilla, so I wasn't necessarily all that surprised. I was surprised that it wasn't a little faster given just how ridiculously light this shaft is. Now, that translated to an average ball speed coming off the Grand Bassara of 107.1. So that's all right, and for my slow swing speed, under 80 miles an hour, that's about what I'd expect, and that gets you pretty close to your maximum multiplier on it. But I switched then, obviously, to the AutoFlex and took shots again, and then switched it back and forth, and this is where I was astounded. So, not only was I only getting 73.9 miles per hour club head speed with this, I was averaging 79 miles per hour club head speed with the AutoFlex shaft. So just in terms of club head speed, from my body down to my hands to the release, all of that should have been exactly the same. That means to me that somewhere down here in the last foot of the AutoFlex shaft, it is adding 5 miles to that golf swing. So basically 74 to 79, it's adding 5 miles an hour, which is what a lot of people are seeing. So 5 miles an hour, what does that translate to? So with the Grand Bassara, I was averaging a ball speed of 107.1 miles an hour. And with the AutoFlex, I was averaging 114.6 miles an hour. So that is over 7 miles an hour faster with the AutoFlex than over the Grand Bassara. That actually surprised me a lot because I thought, well, maybe it's not going to flex and I'm not going to get the whippiness so much with this, but getting rid of an extra 12 or 13 ounces is also going to help my club head speed go up. So I actually kind of expected these to be relatively similar in performance, and they weren't even close. That 114.6 mile per hour ball speed off of here translates into real distance. I mean, 7 miles an hour more with the AutoFlex means that's anywhere from 15 to 20 yards further with this if I were to continue to tune as much as possible with this Grand Bassara, right? So let me also share some other numbers here. So as I was going through the output of numbers, what I found was my fastest club speed with the Grand Bassara was 75.5 miles an hour. And the slowest speed with the AutoFlex was 74.8 miles an hour. So very similar speeds, but the fastest club head speed with the Grand Bassara was just about the same as the slowest club head speed with the AutoFlex. So obviously that means the same on ball speed. In fact, the fastest ball speed I got out of all my shots was 109.4 miles an hour with the Grand Bassara. My slowest ball speed with the AutoFlex was 108.4. So yes, the fastest ball with the Grand Bassara was slightly faster than the slowest ball with the AutoFlex, but it basically means that my maximum capacity with the Grand Bassara is where I start with the AutoFlex. I'll be honest, I was really surprised. I probably wanted the AutoFlex to win, given that I've spent a lot of my own money on it, given that I've played it for the last 3 or 4 months for sure. But I just was surprised that no matter how hard I went at it with this Grand Bassara, I just could not get it anywhere near the speeds that I was getting with the AutoFlex. So that is a big win. Not only is it a big win, but on all my other clubs, I use ultralight shafts, graphite shafts, even all the way down to my irons, because I feel like that helps me get more club head speed with them. And I will tell you that after today's results, I'm almost tempted to get the AutoFlex shafts for my fairway woods and hybrids. That would stretch out the distances on my other clubs too. So I guess I'm not totally convinced that I'm going to do it because of the price point, but I hit a lot of shots with both clubs, and I think these results are pretty conclusive. So for most of us, I think getting 5 miles an hour more out of the AutoFlex after some tuning, after some experience with it, you know, for me, it took a lot of tuning of the head because of the way it whips. I actually needed to go down to a very low lofted club. So I'm using a 7.5 degree lofted club, adjusted down 1.5 degrees down to 6 degrees. So obviously for my swing speed, a 6 degree lofted club would not make any sense. But with the AutoFlex shaft, it does. So I can drive over 200 yards with this in this configuration. So I'm just really surprised. So if you're thinking, whatever the characteristics of the AutoFlex shaft are, you can get them in production shafts. You just have to pay a pretty penny for it. I would say, I don't think that's right. For whatever reason, and I can't tell you all the small details that are going on here, but the sum of the parts on the AutoFlex shaft produce absolute results. So if you want to pick up an AutoFlex shaft, I'll put a link to it in the description below. Peter Von Panda, out.